Welcome to the Future Series. I'm your host, Anthony Dan, and for those of you that are new to the podcast, we talk with real founders about building a business for the future. So whether you're scaling your business currently or starting your first side hustle, we aim to give you the nuggets of information to help you succeed in the future of work. So today we've got Dhruv Adhia on the podcast, co-founder of Prana Labs. How are you doing, Dhruv?
Wonderful, Anthony. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you very much for coming. For listeners today that haven't heard of Prana Labs before, would you be able just to give us a quick overview of what it is you do and a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am co-founder, CEO, and CTO at Prana Labs, a company based in British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. What we do essentially is we build the world's first health intelligence platform, or a layer, that integrates with a number of different wearables such as Apple Watch or Android watches. It then reads and synthesizes stress signals. You can combine, it connects a lot of different information like your medical history, calendar, journaling, as well as biometrics. So both subjective and objective data, and then recommends you a scientifically grounded breathwork technique as well as mindfulness techniques in order to reduce stress, anxiety, help you achieve your calm, help you sleep better, better energy, better focus, all of that. So we work in the space of mental well-being, but also scientifically grounded. We just also published a paper. I can talk a little bit more about that later on, but that's a bit of a bit on Prana Labs and myself.
Amazing. It sounds like an amazing company, and we'll definitely delve into that a bit more later on. But if we look back a bit at your early career and how you came to this point to found Prana, where did it all begin for you? Because you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, aren't you? You've been involved in a few different businesses.
Absolutely. So I finished, I came to do my master's here in Canada, originally from India. And after finishing, I was a researcher for a couple of years. And I had this, entrepreneurial neck in terms of I wanted to start something of my own and I wanted to express myself. I would also strongly say I feel more like an artist at times, where I have a very strong sense of expression that I want to bring out, and that there's so much inside, so many ideas and things like that. Now, when I came to do my master's, and I'll go a little bit even more earlier. So I was one of the most, I would say, fortunate kids in India growing up, and my parents provided me a computer and internet connection back in 1995 when I was just about not even 10 years old. And I felt so fortunate because if you look internet penetration in 1995 in India, we are, I don't know, it's like 3-4% or less. So having that facility allowed me to get into coding, also understanding the world out there, right? Like interacting and chatting with other folks, although my parents didn't agree sometimes, with some of the things, but like online gaming and all. But it was a beautiful world for me. It opened up my mind. I started coding at the age of 10. I had my first website. I built a website, actually, I'll tell you, called softentertainment.com. I did happen to publish it. I was 11 years old, and the idea was the kids of my age would finish some quizzes, and then they get to download some music through, back then we had MP3 players and all whatnot, right? So the idea is that you would study first, and then you get to have entertainment. So kind of like an edutainment, because a lot of parents around me were like, you have to study first, and then you get to entertain yourself, right? So I developed something around that, self-taught in 3 months, but obviously it would still require funds to launch and everything, and I had to stop there. But that was actually a bit of a beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, which didn't extend too far, but I had the most fun time in my life. It was euphoria, and it was such a wonderful experience to build something for people, to change reality. And entrepreneurs have that power to change reality. They are the ones who change reality, right? All the changes that we see around us have been envisioned by some entrepreneur in the form of product or services or licenses or technology, IP, patent. It initiates there. And they are the ones who essentially bring the technologies from labs to market, right? And help commercialize and distribute. Fast forward, after graduating, I solidified my vision. And the vision was to humanize technology. Even as a kid, I had this very interesting experience while I was developing that first company at the age of 10. I became antisocial for 3 months, like didn't speak to my friends and and I realized that technology is a double-edged sword. While it can give you these powers that you can build anything, it can also take you away from a lot of things as well. And growing up, as I became more matured, and I'm like, how can we improve our interfaces? How can we improve our computing experiences? So I started my first company called H Plus Technology around that idea of humanizing technology. And the idea was, how can these pixels that we see inside our 2D screen, I call them pixel prison, how can they come out in the real world? So the idea was to build something called hologram. And and we started building holographic experiences. So that company was founded in 2012. Yeah, we grew that company. At one point, the company was valued at its peak valuation of 85 million US dollars before we exited in 2017. We worked with military, we worked with hospitals, we worked with a number of different verticals, and we got wonderful outcome. And we were at the forefront of developing, I would say, 3D holographic experiences and display systems, interactive display systems for various different age groups. Uh, and that was my complete journey. I would say that was my first complete journey from ideation to exit.
Amazing. What was that like actually going in and founding that from the start? Let's delve into that a little bit because that's obviously the first, apart from obviously the website when you were younger, but the first real world experience. What was it like when you founded that? Did you go straight into it and jump in for both feet? Were you building it on the side?
Yeah, no. So I was transitioning from my research role at UBC here in Vancouver, and I had gathered enough funds for myself, so you can say that it was sweat equity and bootstrapping earlier on in 2012, 2013. I had wonderful co-founders with me as well, Vincent and Yamin, who were part of this company, and all three of us obviously then, and then we were, I would say, around mid of 2012, I was full time into the company. But here's one thing that I learned, Anthony. Technology, building things came a little bit easier to me. The harder part was distribution, financing, the money side of things, right? When I was doing my master's, I purposely decided to do my internship at smaller startups and companies to understand how at least the initial phase of financing works. What are the different forms of financing, non-dilutive, dilutive, all these different approaches. I feel like a lot of times, and even when I talk to founders right now, that is one of the hurdles, right? Money is one of the hurdles. They're immediately thinking, if their employees like, what is my runway? And if they're around 40s and in mid 30s, if they have family going on, will I be able to support my family? And will I be able to cope up or replace whatever I have going on right now? And that is even right now when I talk to some of my friends or advise some other folks out there. That is the sort of challenge, the initial bit of challenge, right? So I took on that fairly earlier on. Like, for me to do that internship was again to understand the cash flow, okay. And I've learned over time, like, cash flow is the king, and how you effectively manage that, right? So that was something that I understood. Okay, what kind of runway is required? What kind of mindset is required as well? And I also learned one thing. I was actually even part of another company before that, but in a part-time capacity. And I realized that it required commitment. Now, obviously, there are a few things you can keep with you for all the pragmatic reasons as you're transitioning into this new role or a new world entirely. But the initial stages were gruesome, essentially. It's like 16 to 18 hours a day. And I was also transitioning, but there I started reducing hours there and putting more and more time here. So I would be like, I remember I would be, taking like the last bus home, and in the midnight, all of that. But that's the fun part, right? Like, that is where I think it's in those moments you realize and learn a lot. You discover that experience is your real wealth at that point. That uncomfort, right? Like being in that zone, discomfort zone, right? Is where the growth happens. So the first thing I understood was commitment from that first company that was called Design Interactive. And then in H plus, I was like, I have to transition full time now. I have to make that move. I also talked with my partners; they were already in, so it only made more sense for me to be full time as well. That was number one, commitment. And I'll tell you one more thing, Anthony. So Prana Labs is part of Next Canada here. It's one of the top incubators like Y Combinator here in Canada. And the founder, Reza Sachu, talks about commitment. And he mentions about commitment leading to magic. I couldn't agree more. So, it is something I would say of to believe in yourself, to have that instinct and to be driven by that mindset, that founder mindset, to allow that space for yourself, because it's a very non-linear journey. If you think by linearly thinking and gathering everything possibly for yourself, you're only going to break down, and it would not allow you to unlock that non-linear gain as well, right? So, and that comes through that commitment, that resolve in that initial stages, and believing in yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's great, great insights, the commitment side. It's interesting, you've always got to be fully in to make it work. And it's interesting to look at different founders, whether they just fully shut off what they were doing before and jump straight in, or whether help build it on the side. And I think, to your point, depends on where you are in life. If you're younger and have less commitments, it's a bit easier to jump straight in. But if you've
Right.
got to make sure it works, otherwise you've got family, etc., that you've got to look after. Sometimes building something on the side and getting a bit of traction is a good way to go. You mentioned H Plus you sold in 2017, was it?
Yes.
What was that like, the sale process? Was that the first time you went through that process as well?
Yes. Yes. So the exits are of a number of different kind. You know, it can happen at very different stage of your company. So it can be at the seed stage, it can be much earlier on, or it can be at a stage where you haven't raised any financing, but you have excellent revenues, and there comes a company that likes your numbers and traction and your brand, and they want to take over everything. And usually that's the process, right? Like that's what's happening here. We talked with SoftBank in China, and we talked with other private investors, and at that, so that was, and we had a number of talks. That the whole process it is pretty big. The whole process can take sometimes years, or definitely 6 months to a year sort of timeline. It's the same timeline, I would say, that could take somebody to raise funds as well. So even their seed round, pre-seed round, and also depends on the market, right? If you are in a bull market, if you are in happy times, things can move faster. But if you are in a trickier time, like we are right now, things can take longer, right? And but I think due diligence has its own fair. It takes fair share of time, whether you're raising funds or you're exiting, and there's a lot of legalities involved. There is a lot of people, stakeholders. Obviously, we had SFU even back then as one of our minor shareholders, and we have a bunch of other shareholders, and obviously sit on table and see how everybody would be getting liquidated, and how the share transfer happens. The new shareholder agreement. What do founders want to do later on? It obviously depends on the board decision as well, and the power you have at that particular point. There are a lot of clauses that would come into picture. I would say one thing though, in founders' defense, always do go through your clauses and your shareholder agreement at the time of raising funds. See what are the liquidation clauses, and who comes in what order you would be getting liquidated. In order to put this simply, when you have like sort of mortgage on your home, and if you sell your home, the first ones would be the bank in line, or the second mortgage, and then you'll be in line, things like that, right? So you need to know those kind of details as well. The nature of the shares, whether how much power do you have in terms of decision making. Many a times you might not be like over 50% shareholder, but again, in many cases you do have power to make a final decision, and push, like in political terms, like a bill forward and get things approved. So it's very important, like as we are starting out, to have a clear understanding of your cap table, of your shareholder agreement, have that chemistry between your partners as well, and understanding so that you can all go far, moving with it. So yeah, that was essentially, I would say, on a higher level, that's what the process, the timelines that it looked like. We would have started somewhere even early of 2016 of a potential exit. Obviously, we had at that time we were actually working with military, and we wanted to fulfill our larger commitments as founders before we move forward, founding other companies or stepping into the next chapter of our life. So obviously, those side of things would also, the operational side of things can also play into the picture. Sometimes it's also the investors, they would want founders to stick around for some time. We did stick around for a while as well, even until 2019, before we completely transitioned out into other firms that we started, the same co-founders that I'm talking about, and obviously, and now I'm here with Prana Labs in 2026.
Yeah. What was that like, or what did that feel like when you got the final signed document for the sale?
Yeah, that's obviously, it's like it's like a big exit. It's like selling your home, or a bigger check that you work towards the years. It's paying down your mortgage or something like that. You can definitely see the years of hard work paying off. It is a wonderful feeling. Obviously, at that point, you yourself can start feeling like an investor, that you at least can be an angel investor, I would say, into your own companies. Now the rules of the game would change essentially moving forward in terms of how you want to do things. Even in this company, we are non-dilutive so far. We've invested our own money so far as well. So, I mean, just looking forward, right? Like those are the things that happen, and I was really happy about that. And to tell others, about this entire journey and story that I'm telling you right now, that how things are possible actually, the more you believe. And it was crazy, to think about holograms. We still don't have it. If you look around us, and we don't have something floating in the air. It's a very challenging field. I'm sure it will come one day, but we were thinking quite ahead of our times, and a lot of people called us crazy, and what are you doing? But then there are people who believed in us as well, like the investors, the universities, mentors, advisors, a lot of people, even friends and family, they were involved as well. So when you look at this whole journey, there's a lot of emotions that are involved. There are a lot of people that get involved, and yeah, at the end of the day, it's a very fulfilling journey. Everything that you go through, as well, even the life that you changed, even the people that you work with, all this number of different clients. You look back, the process, and what I'm trying to say, process is even more exciting than the final result, that okay, this is the end. There was a part of me that even thought, I wish I could even take it bigger. I wish I
Yeah.
could even continue, because there is, as I mentioned, a much bigger future to that particular idea and thought, and there's much more to be achieved in that space as well.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few founders who have built everything up to this sale moment, and once they've signed the check, then they sort of feel a bit like they've lost their baby.
Yeah, we all three of us had that, actually, that feeling, and from different angles, right? And we had, even to be honest, we had this thought: are we doing it too early or not, right? But it was the
Yeah.
right decision for all of us at that point to move forward, to do more other exciting things, and the agreement felt right in terms of freedom to operate and the way we want to carry out and building and innovating other things and products. So we took that call at that point.
Amazing. And then after that, you said you co-founded some other companies as well. I think it was Sila Technology, and then before Prana Labs recently.
Yes. So yeah.
Talk me through those.
Yeah, so Seller Technologies was with the same co-founder as I mentioned. I told you, we ourselves feel like investors, and that company, we have never raised any funds so far. It's been 9 years, and we have been operational, we've been raising, generating revenue, we've been functioning. So the idea with that company was, how can we bring 3D immersive experiences on the cloud for e-commerce? We envision the future of shopping would be much more immersive. We didn't predict something obviously like COVID, which is when things actually picked up for us, blessing in disguise. It was tough times, but in many ways it started working out. We started out by pushing the boundaries of, the rendering and the effects of virtual light that can have on augmented reality experiences. Um, that's when we also had some really good applications like Pokemon Go, and we had this sort of era of how people were connected in AR spaces. So that also motivated us. Again, it was along the lines of humanizing technology, and how we can humanize this experience of shopping in this case, right? How can we get this 3D objects feel more natural to interact with, understand the complexities, even configure them in real time. And we have wonderful examples even right now that we are building much more complex now using generative AI, and like, you can even talk to configurator, you can modify as a customer, and can check out like, in a very simple and easy to use manner. So that is still our technologies that I started again with the same co-founders, before, and then in 2024, 2025, I stepped into Prana Labs.
Yeah, with that whole AR and sort of VR world, it was, like you said, in COVID, it was what everyone was talking about, having the VR headset, the metaverse was coming to play, but it's all
Right.
kind of gone a bit quiet now. I don't know if it's just the AI noise has taken over, but I think it's still developing as they were.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think VR and AR is something that I've been in this industry since early 2010s, because we built those kind of immersive experiences as in H plus technologies, but non HMD, which means head mounted display. So our mandate was that pixels should be right here in front of you. You should not have to wear anything. That was our mandate. And I always was a little bit more vocal about it would be nice to have experiences where it's non-intrusive essentially, right? Or maybe something as simple as lens that I can put on and I'm transported into different world. I think and there were a number of, like, Oculus went on to Kickstarter and got bought out by Meta for $2 billion. We had things happening, and obviously Meta is trying to push, but I know the investments have gone down, and so has Apple Vision Pro, and they've stopped manufacturing Apple Vision Pro as well. I think, and that was our challenge as well. And the flat 2D screen, I think the research that has gone into the space, and the systems are designed to work with the physics. Like when you start typing, let's talk about input. And I'll come to AR VR. Like why is it challenging to mass distribute this kind of technologies? But what has also worked, I'll also talk a little bit on that. So when you type, you are supported by gravity, but when you are in AR, and so like when you're head-mounted display, even if you were to have a keyboard, then you're mimicking essentially the laptop or your desktop PC experience, and you'll be questioning, I could just do that on PC. Now, if you were to do these gestures, my master's thesis was based on gestures, and I studied on gorilla arm and how the there's this pain in your arm if you do it for even more than like 30 seconds, and it was so there are a lot of things that look pretty cool in that space, in the space 3D space, but not that straightforward to implement because you're fighting gravity, and
Mm.
you're disconnected, from the environment and everything. And obviously there are other factors like, you feel nauseated, and you feel sort of disconnected if you use it for a prolonged period of time. There was a time when I used to work out in VR using Supernatural, and I would do it like 7 days a week, and then after a few weeks I had to stop because my brain could not stop reeling, and I had to really stop using VR. So there are these kind of challenges as well, right? So I think, the immersive experiences, what it taught me, has a place for specific applications, venue, and time. They are not there yet. We are not there yet in terms of computing in general, right? Like I would wear something whole day, 7, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and I would function everything that way. You would essentially be sort of disconnected with your family, with surrounding, and a lot of things can go on, right, for practical reasons. So that is why the mobile AR is something that worked. Again, I don't think people use that all the time, but we played, there's like Pokemon Go and those kind of games picked up, and there is visualizing furniture in your living room space, or visualizing products in your space, all of that. So that has a practical outcome. Again, different experiences, whether it is non-HMD, head mounted display, or HMD. I think even companies like Magic Leap, they understood that they need to go more towards enterprise. Even HoloLens and Microsoft, and even with Apple Vision Pro, they understand they need to go more towards enterprise who have specific needs. For example, a worker in manufacturing facility that can augment information. Okay, this is what you need to do next. This is how you need to repair. This is how you need to move it forward to the next part of assembly pipeline. All of that, right? And it's a very specific kind of application. And we also, as a result, worked in very specific areas with holographic experiences. There's a very specific experience with military. There's a very specific experience with hospitals. So it was very specific, in that sense. Uh, So again, I think that's the challenge. And now we are in the AI era. Obviously, all the corporations and everything. Now we see obviously a technology that everybody can use, like computing and internet. I think AI is definitely that wave, which is not niche as per se. It's not. It is something literally everybody can use. With a little bit of hand holding, our parents can use. Our grandparents can potentially talk to something and find information.
Yeah.
Um, Getting very user friendly, right? I mean, you would have seen this recent demo from OpenAI where elderly folks were talking with their latest models, I think 5.6 all, and how it was answering them back, and they felt like, wow, that is so human like, and it's so conversational, it's so social. So yeah, very very different set of technologies, obviously, and obviously the industry tried, but it's extremely hard to break through to masses, right? Something that is so easy, something that does not require behavior change. That is one of the biggest thing I learned as an entrepreneur. Whatever you're building, what is the amount of behavior change that is going to require? If they have to learn like five different things, I think that's a red flag. But if you're bringing, and AI is all about that. AI is all about learning, not just machine learning, but it's also about learning humans
Mm.
constantly, right? From their audio, from their video, it's learning day in day out, right? And it's understanding better and better. I don't have to, like, go and get into nitty gritties. People are vibe coding, vibe marketing. People, like, people who didn't knew things before are entering other space. So it is, and that is an adoption, right? Like that, you cannot stop that kind of adoption. Like it is no more specialized. People are, they don't even have to learn anything. There is no blockers. There's no kind of learning curve, and that's how adoption happens, right? And so those are also the challenges with AR and VR, developing that content even on the developer side. This is pre-AI era. Like developing those experiences took tons of dollars and tons of money essentially to develop and design, and then the sales cycle would become difficult as well. But yeah, this, I can go on, like, this is a huge, like, question to answer, but in nutshell, I think that's what we as humanity has gone through.
Yeah, I'm sure we could delve really deep into that more and more and more, but
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to hear. So a lot of the learnings that you took from those previous companies as well, have you then put them into Prana Labs, or maybe before we go into that, a step back, where did the idea for Prana Labs come from?
Yeah, very interesting question, Anthony. So in 2015 December to 2016 March, I had three anxiety attacks. And anxiety attacks are something that can make somebody feel extremely uncomfortable. It does. For the first time, it just feels like heart attack, and
Yeah,
you'll be like, what did just happen to me? You'll be like confused totally. Like it went away in like 9 to 10 seconds. I remember it was at nighttime. And then it happened again after a few weeks, and third one after a few weeks. And I knew the pranayams, the breath work, the yoga. I just didn't apply at that time. 2015 was extremely insane. The company grew at its peak. I was sleeping 3 to 4 hours a day throughout the year on an average. And I was like on top of communication, replying and developing and just stretched out, founders burnout. That's what they call founders burnout, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized that a lot of things I can find my balance. I just need to choose balance. Now here comes the, commitment and then balance. And again, in this non-linear journey, again, I don't think putting those insane hours, especially in this day and age of AI, would necessarily result into exponential growth. There's a lot of things you can learn from others, those things that you can train your own AI agents, and then you can do things smartly. Like you do not need to repeat others' mistake. And even if you train that to your AI agents, you would avoid a lot of mistakes as a founder, right? Health is one of them. And I've realized that it's more of a marathon than a 100-meter race, because you think you want to go really fast and the race is over, but it's not. The reality will still keep asking you to run. You cannot stop, right? But if you run too fast, you'll burn out, and that's where things happen. Now, I did do a breathwork sessions for like 6 months after that. I visited doctor. They prescribed me 81.5 mg, and I rejected that, and I fall back to lifestyle changes. And after 6 months, after that, never have I ever experienced that ever again, right? So I recovered from that situation. I'm confident in the sense like I can be standing in front of thousands of people, traveling day and night. I was traveling a lot as well, by the way, to China then, and Asia, different parts of Asia, even Europe, US. So as you grow, a lot of founders need to know that your body will take a toll, addressing a lot of needs, talking with number of different people. How do you find your balance? And I found my balance in lifestyle changes. I wanted to be in control. Obviously, I was too young to be on medication. If if there is something genetically happening, obviously I would say talk to your doctor. Or if you think that you should talk to your doctor and go down that path. But I knew that there's a lot of data out there that can help me overcome stressful situation, that can help me regulate my nervous system. So this is my first beautiful experience of using breathwork in real life situation and overcoming stress, making me more resilient, right? Like making my nervous system more resilient and be prepared for unknown, uncomfortable situations, or situations in which I'm just too busy, or I have to attend to a lot of different needs. Founders also go through something called, decision fatigue. They have to make a lot of decisions throughout the day, every day, and any particular decision can sometimes make or break the future growth trajectories, right? So it's a lot of cognitive load that founders go through, right? So now fast forward in 2019, I got married into 2018. I was normal again. Everything was fine. I was like working out, but then I was really happy with the marriage and everything. And I took a break, I again got out of my lifestyle and got into some habits again, in terms of like overeating and other aspects about my sleep habits that resulted me into being pre-diabetic. Again, doctors were about to write some very standard medications like metformin as in the form of prescription, and I rejected that prescription. I told doctors, give me 3 months. There's a biomarker called HbA1c, which is a measure of your sugar, like average sugar over 3 months, 2 to 3 months. And if you get that under control, you're doing good. You have essentially reversed or managed your diabetes, right? So I formed a plan again. I knew I had gone through this once, but for different set of biomarkers. But this time I had more clear biomarker to work with, because there's no real biomarker for stress and anxiety actually. It's like you do feel, your body feels something. And obviously there are medications to help you feel calmer and all of that. But obviously I didn't want to go in that direction of psychiatry and those kind of medications, right? So I can do this again, and I came out with a very strong resolve and just took a complete U-turn, woke up early. That bought me 2 hours every day for my health alone in the morning. So in 90 days, I bought myself 180 hours dedicated to health and health alone. I spent evenings on health, so I would have spent in next 3 months around 300 to 350 hours on my health alone, like nothing else. I'm not thinking anything else, no meetings, nothing. And I recovered completely without taking single medication. Again, there were specific breath works that were employed, like skull shining breath work, which works on improving your metabolism essentially. helping you speed up your metabolism, digest better, sleep better. There is alternate nostril breathing that can help you sleep better. And obviously, I got into a lot of cardio, some strength training, low carb diet, all of those changes. So it was complete reversal again. My wife supported me. I have to say she was my doctor as well. Like she listened me out in terms of my difficult times, and we adapted everything in terms of what we cook at home, all the alternatives that we can find in terms of replacing carbs, and it worked out beautifully. And it's still, that is my, I would say I'm still following, I would say not 100% all of that, but 80%. And that resulted me into building Prana Labs. I'm like, how can we offer this understanding, this kind of recovery that everybody, all the people who are going through some sort of stress, how they can start recovering using this kind of technology that can come to them, that can help them realize what their bodies are going through and help them prevent as well in many cases.
Yeah, you mentioned, was it pranayam, the breath work, the Indian,
Yes.
ancient Indian breath work? Is that where
Yes.
the inspiration for the name came from, I assume?
Yes. So prana and yama is like it means the vehicle through which your breath moves throughout your body. So it's a flow of air within your body. That's what pranayam means. And there are many different kinds of pranayams. And I would say the Western and the European world has also come up with the same practices. They call it breath work. Now, there are obviously the Oriental practices, the Indian practices that are much older. They are, I would say there's much more studies that could be done as well. There are a lot of studies that has been done on multiple different factors, like how it improves sleep, reduces anxiety, reduces average heart rate, increases HRV, heart rate variability, which is a measure of stress in any given situation, right? So we combine both Eastern and Western techniques onto the single platform, and we prescribe a very specific personal protocol for your needs based on the data that you're providing, you as a user, like the subjective data, how you feel, your medical history, even your calendar. It looks at calendar. For example, I got notification on my watch that Dhruv, you're going to get into a podcast. Let's do a quick breathwork session so that you have 1 4 times. I got that notification right here.
Nice.
So because I've connected my calendar, because to understand human being, we obviously even need something much more than biomarkers, right? We need to know what does your day look like? What's your medical history? What are you going through right now? As a woman, are you pregnant or not? Are you going through periods or not? Do you have high blood pressure or not? Do you have, any kind of situation, right? And what time of the day? So it's like, there's no point of having caffeine at night. Some of the pranayams and breath work, they can increase your alert levels, right? But so there's no need of doing that at night. You can do that in the morning, but there are certain other breath works and pranayams that can help you wind down very beautifully. And it's the studies in your brain that have shown how it goes, into the calmer state, from beta state, which is the most active state, to the delta state, and all those states which can help gradually shifting the gears. So let's say when you are slowing down your car, you don't want to slow down from fourth gear to first gear, and when you're accelerating, you don't want to do that as well from first to fourth. And that's how we burn out, when we keep doing that again and again, right? So the idea with this product is help you understand your gears and help you set up, like, okay, there's a bump ahead, let's slow down, right? Okay, there's children's in the park, let's slow down. So it's helping you. The idea about Vayu is that it helps you understand that about yourself, gather more and more data about your entire scenario, your entire day, and then help you achieve that shifting of gears essentially. And that shifts the state of mind. And we also published a paper on that, by the way. I can speak more on that. And that's where it can help you find your balance and work, and also provide energy throughout the day as well, right? So a lot of different kinds of benefits that you can start experiencing pretty much in few weeks of usage.
Amazing. No, it sounds great, and I love it how it's obviously paired from your experiences plus the technology side to be able to build this out. Where is it available at the moment then, and what are your growth plans with it over the next sort of 1, 3, 5 years?
Absolutely. So right now it's available on Android and Apple ecosystem. It's compatible with Apple Series 6 and Plus. And on Android, it is compatible with like 59 different models and I don't know, 16,000 different models of phones. Android is so dispersed, right? So Google, Samsung, it works. So feel free to try it out. I would also offer to your audience, Anthony, a coupon after this call so that they can try out a month or two for free and see if they like it or not, and happy to get their feedback as well. So that's where we are at right now. We are generating revenue, we are growing. We are also now, we've raised non-dilutive form of funding. So we're going through dilutive form of funding and financing at this stage. So happy to speak with investors and whatnot to help us grow. And really, our plan is for Why to be that household name, to be that companion, your health companion throughout the day, which can help make your day better, sharper, more energetic, beautiful, help you sleep better. And we truly believe breath is a common interface, right? Like breath is something that we all have in common, all 7 to 8 billion humans around the world. I even prescribe this to my daughter, by the way. She is 4.5, and I tell, and kids sometimes have, they might feel dysregulation, their emotions, they might not be able to regulate. So I tell her to, do some short breathing sessions, like, in terms of cycles, like 5 to 10. So even for parents, for the kids, I would highly encourage is it would help their kids as well to have the nervous system regulation and really to make the planet more resilient, in terms of in this day and age of AI, in this day and age of everything that humanity is going through. This is the gift, this is our offering, as a company. How can we make it more beautiful by making humans realize that they are no lesser than AI, and they are out to do wonderful things once they know the power of their nervous system, once they know the power of their mind. And that is where we wish to be in next 3 to 5 years down the line, where as much as they rely on AI for information, the idea is that AI would also empower human beings to perform at their best.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and I'll definitely be giving it a little trial go for sure. Just before we round off the podcast as well, if there's anyone listening who really wanted to ask you a question or reach out, what would be the best way to get in touch?
You can personally email me, Dhruv at vayu-prana.com, which is vayu-prana.com, and DHRUV, that's my first name. Or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well, or emails. And you can leave a message to our website as well. If there are companies interested in working with us, happy to connect in multiple different ways.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dhruv, for being on the podcast and telling us about your fascinating story with multiple different companies and everything you're doing now. It sounds like a great company, and love your vision and purpose for it as well.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me on the podcast, and it was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, no problem at all. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.